Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, CNN political analyst, also a pollster. I am pleased to have each of you here. Kellyanne, tell me, what is a soccer mom, and what is it that qualifies her to be in that category?
Well, there's nothing new about women living in the suburbs and having children who are interested in extracurricular activities. But the so-called soccer moms are these predominantly white women who live in the suburbs, some in rural areas, who do have children and in the past have voted either Republican or Democratic at the congressional level, but mostly Democratic, and are showing a willingness this year to maybe split their ticket. They're leaning towards Bill Clinton for president right now, but they haven't completely bought into the more for Newt strategy at the congressional level, such that they'll completely buck the Republican incumbents. In large part, the soccer moms are individuals who, as voters, are willing to split their tickets this year, but they're willing to reward the incumbents this year for what they perceive to be a job fairly well done on behalf of their children. Soccer moms are not single-issue voters, which leaves them up for grabs. They throw a lot into their cauldron, stir it up, and then from that craft some type of choice at the end. They're up for grabs this year because they are going to vote. They're more likely to vote than other decided voters, but at the same time, they have not definitively made up their mind yet. They're very, very busy people.
And they're prepared to split their ticket.
They are prepared.
People may very well be voting for the president on the one hand, and for some of those conservative Republican congresspeople that they sent to Washington in 1994. That seems to contradict in terms of philosophy.
Well,
why doesn't it?
Voters have a very special way of being schizophrenic, and we as pollsters try to get to this. But the fact is that there are at least three very solid indicators as to why a Republican Congress and a Democratic president would be ushered back in next year. And those reasons are, we talk a very good game about change and choice and options in this country, but we still love incumbents. Even in 1994 with the sea change you've mentioned, Charlie, we reelected 91% of sitting incumbents. The other reason that they may all get reelected is because you have Republican congressional candidates and a Democratic president running on the same agenda of accomplishments. They're both bragging about the same thing. So what, freshman Randy Tate is bragging about in Seattle is the same thing Bill Clinton is talking about in the stump. They're saying, I gave you health care portability, I gave you welfare reform, adoption tax credit, line item vetoes. The only odd man out, ironically, of that entire equation is Bob Dole, who I think has been so spooked to distance himself from his years in Washington, he's forgetting to say, hey, except for the final signatory processes, I was there too. But this country has very much bought into Bill Clinton's idea of don't rock the boat. We're at a time in our country's evolution, our history, where security is preferred to opportunity. And speaking of these soccer moms, I think Bill Clinton appeals to their don't rock the boat impulses.
Well, here's what I want to go to Deborah and say. Why is it that these issues are paramount to these voters rather than questions of ethics and character in office?
Well, ethics and character don't keep their children safe or put food on their table for many of these women. But let's not forget, character is important to some of these women. I think that's in large degree.
They define it a different way?
They define character as a very broad umbrella, and these women will choose a different raindrop under them. To some, character means substantive positions on the issues. To others, it means you broke your promise. To others, it is a matter of personal virtue. But to most, it's just this whole idea of general honesty, trustworthy, and integrity. And right now, Bill Clinton doesn't score as high as Bob Dole on those issues among women, which is the one place where Bob Dole has some wiggle room. But, to put it all in context, if you are, again, a so-called soccer mom, or really any woman in today's society, you're arguably among the busiest people around. And so for you to focus on big picture platitudes in sacrificing what's truly important to you, the place where your children attend school and what is taught there, keeping them safe, keeping your family budget. If 80% of all personal checks in this country are signed by a woman, you can see how women literally have control over the family budget. That's far more important to them than these big picture platitudes. I couldn't agree more. I think that's precisely why I couldn't agree more with Celinda. I think that's precisely why Bill Clinton looked at his polling data and his focus group results and decided he was going to have to talk a lot less like Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's convictions and a lot more than, say, traditional small c conservative rhetoric. This is why he runs as a one-man party. And I think the one thing I can pull from polling data, which is at once fascinating to all of us poll watchers, but at the same time should be very depressing to Republicans short term, is that in blind polls where you put forth competing solutions to reforming welfare, health care, crime, taxes, women invariably they gravitate toward the Republican solution. It is only when you identify it as a Republican solution that they bolt. Substantively, they are starting to change their minds about a full-scale government involvement in their everyday lives.
What does that mean, then, that the Republicans have done a terrible job of describing and characterizing and using the right language to articulate what they stand for and what their programs do?
What it means is that I would advise Republicans to substantively not change their message much if they want to try to close the so-called gender gap, but to broaden their base of messengers, to do what seems to have worked with the convention, to just sort of trot out all of these rank-and-file Republican women elected officials who truly exist. It's not like the Republicans ran this national contest and said, are there any women out there who will be a Republican for a night? They're there. And they also have to work on the delivery system, Charlie, which goes exactly to the words that you're talking about. There is a finite list of buzzwords in our political rhetoric which do appeal to women. Bill Clinton says at least 12 of them per speech. Children, families, protect, fairness, compassion. Women are natural peacemakers. You need to appeal to their sense of fairness. And Bill Clinton recognized this, I think, in his own polling and realized that the strategies he put forth in 1993 and 1994 were not going to help elect him among women in 1996.
You argue that if the Republicans, based on what you just said about negative campaigning, had come out very strong talking about ethics and character, they had a chance to change the agenda and the debate of this election. Celinda.
Sure. Oh, Celinda.
Kellyanne, either one.
Sure. I just think that you have to build that case over time. Because as Celinda and the other ladies have pointed out today, character is a very broad topic that you just can't throw on the table like it's a 15% tax cut or like it's the V-chip.
And you can't throw it on in the last 2 weeks
That's
either.
right. It's not a prescription. It's not a program that it's always there. And it is much like the Supreme Court's test for obscenity, Charlie. It's no one can really define it for you, but they know it when they see it. They need to see it over time. Had Bob Dole talked about campaign finance reform and Clinton's character all along, then Indonesia would slip in there very easily. If you start with Indonesia as your base, then you have to explain it working backwards. Doesn't work as well.
I'm sorry, Kellyanne, I didn't hear you.
I would think scandal after scandal should be all the more reason to be concerned, but unfortunately I agree. I think we've become a shrug-shoulder electorate.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you, Kellyanne. Pleasure to have you on the broadcast.
Bye.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.